We've all been misled on fats. For 40 years they've been telling us that they're bad for us and we should cut down on them. So they sell us low-fat foods with added sugar. I was in the queue for coffee at the station recently, and the lady in front of me ordered a decaf skinny latte with 2 sugars. So that's take out the fun, take out the food, throw in a load of empty carbohydrates. Bad idea. No surprise then that we now see a lot of people who are actually ill because they're fat deficient. The facts about fats are pretty simple. Here's how it works. Most of these are in the membranes of every single cell. The outside wall and a lot of the internal structures like the mitochondria are made up of 90-something% fat. Those break down into roughly 3 equal parts. 1/3 is polyunsaturated fats. That's the omega-3s and omega-6s. 1/3 is the saturated fats that you get from cream and eggs, the ones that they've been telling us for 40 years are bad for us, although nobody's yet proved it. And 1/3 is cholesterol, which is supposed to be the great evil. The reason you need all 3 types is to provide the perfect balance between solid and fluid that makes the membrane work. Too much either way and it goes wrong. So each of those 3 types of fat is essential to life, and it's implausible that cutting any of them out or right down is going to prevent anything. In fact, it's the opposite that happens. A low sat fats diet increases your risk of dying of heart disease, and if you're over 50, you're more likely to die if you have a low cholesterol than a high one, mostly from infectious diseases, because guess what? Your immune system runs on cells too. Now, you've probably heard that most of the cholesterol in your body was actually made there. Only about 20% of it came in your food. But the polyunsaturates you have to get in your diet. We can't make them. And the sat fats we're not so good at making either. We do seem to need to eat them. So the one thing that the body can do in times of need is to make more cholesterol to order. And that's exactly what it does. If you're short of fats, any type of fats, the body ups its cholesterol production to plug the gap. For most of us, a high cholesterol is a response to a lack of fats, and replacing the missing fats will bring it down again. So it looks like cholesterol isn't the cause of heart disease, it's more an attempt to repair the damage. Of course, there are some people with a hereditary high cholesterol for whom it's not so simple. I've got a good friend with just that problem. You know who you are, Peter. Also, it turns out that those of us who can't switch on cholesterol production when needed are worse off because we can't adapt so well. Presumably that's why low cholesterol is a bad idea for us. As we learn more about this, there's been an explosion in sales of omega-3 oil supplements and oily fish. But that's not necessarily the best thing to do. Look at it this way. You're about 1/3 fats. 1/3 of that is polyunsaturates, so let's say 10% of your weight. For a big guy, that's around 10 kilos or 20-odd pounds. If you're 10% low in polyunsaturates, which can happen, you've got to replace about 1 kilo. So that's 1,000 of those big 1,000 milligram capsules, assuming that they're fully absorbed. In other words, you can't do it without diet. The other thing is this. If you look at the detailed composition of the membranes, the amount of the 2 types of polyunsaturates goes like this. Omega-3 around 6% of the total, omega-6 25%. So there's 4 times as much omega-6 in your body as there is omega-3. And it's not surprising, this turns out to be the best ratio to have in the food that you eat. 4-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3. There is another kind of fats called trans fats. These aren't natural, they're produced from unsaturated fats by heat in the manufacture of certain foods, mostly fast foods. They have the advantage of being more stable, so they have a longer shelf life, which is good for the manufacturers, but not for us. Ordinary fats are burned for energy, but we just can't break down and burn trans fats, so they stick around and do harm. For instance, they increase the risk of heart disease more than any other food. In 2002, a review by the US National Academy of Sciences concluded the only safe intake of trans fats is 0. That's why several American cities are planning to ban them from restaurants and takeaways. In fact, as Michael Pollan, a brilliant food writer, said, the first message is eat food, not food-like substances.
This is fat. This is plump.